Foreign policy is the goals of the government that they would like to achieve and the ways by which they plan to achieve them in terms of other nations. This is influenced by a number of factors. One includes the economy of the country. In 2010, the foreign policy budget of the United States was $14 trillion. Congress writes the budget, both the civilian and the military budget, but foreign policy is basically spearheaded by the President of the United States. The President of the United States can negotiate treaties, but the treaties have to be approved by two-thirds of the Senate. However, the President can utilize executive agreements, which don't have to be approved by Congress. The President can also um, utilize the military troops to invade other countries, which is significant power. Um, Congress, however, can are the only ones that can approve um, the declaration of war. They're the only ones that can declare war. However, um, utilizing troops to invade a country can be seen as an act of war. Congress writes the budget and regulates commerce. Secretary of State, in terms of foreign policy, acts as the foreign minister and the diplomat from nation to nation, um, state to state diplomacy. Um, and Secretary of State is appointed by the president and with the Senate approval, of course. Goals of foreign policy are made by the government collectively, and that is reflective of the atmosphere of the United States as well as the world in general. Now, the United States went through several different periods in terms of foreign policy. Initially, it was an isolationist type of period. Um, President Monroe best addressed that in his address to Congress in 1823, when it was basically just like, don't meddle in Western affairs, and we won't meddle in European affairs, and basically kept that isolationist type approach until the World War II, when we declared war on Japan. And that took us into the Cold War, which was the next era in foreign policy. And the Cold War was basically a war of ideological differences between the Soviet Union and the United States. The Soviet Union believed that the only way to control Germany was to split it between East and West. And the East, they tried to implement the communism ideals, and the West, the United States, tried to implement democratic ideals. That came to a head at 1980s, in 1987, when President Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev signed the INF Treaty and began dismantling nuclear weapons. And this led to the period of idealism. Basically, the United States is spreading their idealism of democracy and human rights. We're kind of in a period of aggressive type behavior, I guess you call it, after 9/11. George Bush kind of implemented this idea of preemptive war, where basically, if you suspect terrorism, you attack, you don't sit around and wait for it to happen. A lot of people disagree with that. They say that goes against the ideas of what America stands for, and not everybody agrees with that. And that's pretty much where we stand in terms of foreign policy.